Hi, I'm Jazz Obrecht, and welcome to my Talking Guitar podcast featuring my 1982 cover story interview with one of the most innovative guitarists to come out of the British rock scene, Brian May. The year before, Brian's band Queen had released their greatest hits compilation, which went on to become the biggest selling album in UK history. At the time we spoke, Queen had just completed a North American tour and was getting ready to go over to Japan. Brian's quiet, gentlemanly nature during our interview gave little hint of the flash that he delivered on stage with Queen, playing a unique guitar that he made with his dad back when he was a kid. He cut the figure of the quintessential British guitar star, tall, lean, and in control. As he played, he displayed a dazzling array of effects and tones and techniques during Queen's sets, which in the 1980s were among the most theatric in all of rock and roll. And at the climax of each show was an unforgettable solo guitar extravaganza. To prepare for this transatlantic phone interview, I listened to every Queen track in chronological order. So in addition to covering Brian's musical background, influences, guitars, and gears, I questioned him at length about the techniques he used for many specific Queen songs. Brian really seemed to enjoy this approach. So here, without any further ado, is my 80-minute conversation with the author of We Will Rock You. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello?
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Great. Thanks for getting back with me.
Good. I'm sorry it took so long. We seem to have been engaged in different pursuits.
Yeah, I was on vacation and, well, we finally did it.
Yeah, good.
How's it going?
It's fine. We're here. We came here to do Saturday Night Live.
Uh-huh.
It's great. Everyone's been really nice. We thought it was going to be hard to work with the TV people, because in England it's quite hard very often. But they were great, and they've given us everything we want. It sounds good, and it looks good, you know.
Did you film it already?
No. It is live on the Saturday night. It actually goes out 100% live. So we did a couple of rehearsals and then changed a few things and a couple more, and it's great.
Hey, are you familiar with Guitar Player?
Yes, of course.
Oh, good. So you know we kind of cover the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, to begin with, if somebody wanted to hear the essential Brian May, what tracks would you advise them to listen to?
Oh, dear. Oh, no. In a way, if it possible, I'd rather people saw us live, I think, really. But there's always a few moments there of the kind which you don't really capture on a record, really. As far as records, I don't know. I suppose I like the heavy stuff, really. Some of the stuff, let me think. Well, I suppose Brighton Rock. That's really one. And as far as oh dear, it's very hard to think offhand. Funny, I don't usually get asked that. Let me think. Well, I suppose as far as the melodious, the melodic side goes, the solo in Killer Queen was an interesting, the beginning of an era in a way. Let me think. Also on Queen 2 there's a lot of stuff which I like, because that was the beginning of doing guitar orchestrations, which I always wanted to do. And there's, from the first track, Father to Son, it starts off, there's an introduction and stuff, and then when it gets into the song proper, there's a few words sung, and then immediately it goes into a sort of six-part orchestral kind of thing, which was really a big thrill for me to be able to do that, because I'd never been allowed to spend that amount of time in a studio to construct those things before that time, and that was sort of fulfillment of an ambition for me to get started on that sort of road of using the guitar as a kind of orchestral instrument.
Had you imagined that before, or heard it in your head, so to speak?
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah, but it took so long to get. See, when I was a kid, I thought it would be nice to be a guitar player, and I thought, well, it'll probably never happen, but I'll just keep playing anyway. And then when the group actually started to look as though it might do something, my whole ambition in life was to make an album that people would listen to and actually put something down which was there for all time. And so to get in the studio at all and know that it was going to be immortalized, as it were, was a big thing. And the fact that we were shoved in there for sort of couple-hour periods at half an hour's notice, it was slightly irritating, but we hardly thought of it as a real hardship. We just thought we were lucky to be in there at all. So for that first album, it was a case of shove everything down quick and get out before the next people come in, because we weren't paying customers. We were sort of in-house boys, as it were. So it was like, oh, there's half an hour free here, stick the boys in. But for the second album, we actually demanded and got some real studio time, so we could spend some time doing those things.
Over the years, you've embraced a lot of different styles, like sort of Middle Eastern stuff, big band, guitar, folk, country, jazz, rock, urban blues. Which styles came first and most naturally to you?
That's a hard question too, because I find it all comes naturally in a way, as naturally as anything comes naturally. You know, I think everything has to be worked on. But I think when we were growing up in England, we had all that stuff around us. And the stuff that really propelled us, the stuff which excited us, was the blues-based material, really. That was really what made us want to play, I think.
How old are you now?
35.
35. Yeah, so you would have been coming in, you would have been aware of music when the blues boom was happening?
Yeah, when I was very young, the only thing that was on the radio, which I actually liked, was American pop music. So it would be things like Buddy Holly and the Crickets and the Everly Brothers. Little Richard. Those were the sort of records we bought when we got old enough to buy records, mainly. And there were the English pop music that was around was pretty much a carbon copy of that. You know, so you had people like, well, I don't want to do him an injustice, but people like Cliff Richard in the early days was very much an Elvis Presley sort of figure. And his group, The Shadows, went on to make a lot of very interesting instrumental stuff. And
was that with Hank Marvin?
Yes, yeah. So that was the first thing I ever really, you know, when I started playing the guitar, I played chords and skiffle for a while. Like Lonnie Donegan was influenced by American blues. I played some.
How old were you when you started?
I think about 8.
Did anyone in your family play instruments?
My father played a thing called a ukulele banjo, which is like a little miniature banjo, and it was made famous by people like George Formby and Billy Hugh Scott in the days when my father was a kid. He had one of those, and he taught me how to play that. He taught me about 6 or 7 chords on that, I suppose. And when I asked for a guitar, I think for my 8th or 9th birthday, and I just converted the chords from 4 strings to 6 strings and got off that way. I sort of made up the chords. And I used to strum and sing for a while, and there was a skiffle boom, which was really... Lonnie Donegan was a big figure in England. He was an English artist who was...
Rock Island Line?
Yeah, that's right. He would do Lead Belly songs and a few other... some of the stuff he wrote himself. And I liked him a lot.
Where were you born and raised?
In Feltham in Middlesex, which is a suburb of London.
So some of your songs, like 39, are sort of folksy. Did you ever play in coffee houses?
No, not really, but that was the skiffle sort of thing. That's quite close to what a lot of the skiffle stuff was like. You know, strum away at great speed and sing, and the odd little lick in there someplace. Although the material wasn't, you know, the lyrics were a long way away from what skiffle was about.
How did you learn guitar?
Well, as I say, I had those chords to start off with, and then I began to notice on records like Ricky Nelson's records and Elvis Presley that there were some people there playing some amazing stuff, and I couldn't even hear it well enough to be able to attempt to play it. It's funny. But people like the Shadows, who were playing quite simple instrumental music, I could lock onto, and I could learn them off note for note. And so I learned to play what I call single note style as opposed to just strumming from people like the Shadows and the Ventures and a few other people who were around at the time, the Spotniks. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Sputniks?
The Spotniks, they were called, yeah.
Like the space satellite?
Yeah, they were from somewhere in Europe, I think Sweden. Yeah, they used to play, and they played a lot of stuff which I was struggling to play, and then I discovered that they were speeding up the tapes to be able to play it that fast. Speed used to come into it a lot in those days. I mean, it was like when I was at school in the fifth and sixth form, which is by that time I would be about 16 or 17. There was a kind of competition. It would be fun to see who could play the new stuff quickest. So when the new instrumental records came out, we would all feverishly study them at home and be able to play them. And the Spotniks used to do this incredibly fast stuff, like Orange Blossom Special. And we used to really kill ourselves, make our fingers bleed to try and play it. That's where I learned technique, really.
Was this acoustic guitar?
Well, at that time I had an acoustic guitar which I made some pickups for and electrified it. And I used to play that through an old radio which we had at home. My dad was good at electronics.
You made the pickups?
Yeah, I got some magnets and wound a coil around them, basically.
Wow.
Stuck it under the strings. It worked pretty well. And at that time we thought it was a good idea to make a guitar. We thought it'd be interesting, and seeing as I couldn't afford something like a Stratocaster, it seemed like a good idea. So my father and I started making the guitar when I was about, I think, 15 or 16, and we finished it when I was 17 or 18.
Is that the guitar you play now?
Yeah, that's the same one.
Could you describe that for me?
Well, it's not exactly like any other guitar. We did a lot of experiments, and I played some of my friends' guitars, like Stratocasters, and a lot of people had Hofners in those days, which is a sort of cheaper version. It looks like, the body shape came out of my head. It looks a little bit like, I don't know what it's closest to. It's the sort of shape which the semi-acoustic guitars had in those days. It was like the Gibson 335.
Yeah.
But it's not symmetrical. I didn't want it symmetrical. I wanted it cut away more on the underside so that I could genuinely get up to those top frets. So I put actually 24 frets on it.
Did you make the neck too?
Yeah, everything totally from scratch with hand tools. Yeah.
Really?
The neck was an old piece of an extremely old fireplace. Yeah, we just worked away at it and made lots of plans and drawings and chiseled away.
Brian, what was your father by profession?
He's an electronics draftsman, which means he designs electronic gear.
Oh, I see.
So he was able to give me a lot of help, and he's also very good mechanically. He's got a good, he had a good mechanical and scientific background and all that. So he was able to help me with all that stuff.
Did you make the pickups too?
Yes, originally I made them, but they sounded pretty good, except they had one bad fault, which was that when you squeezed the string, when you bent the string across the fingerboard, it would make this kind of rushing sound, because the pole pieces I had went north, south, north, south, north, south, instead of north, 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 right?
Oh, I see.
So there was a problem there. So I eventually bought some Burns pickups. Burns were filmmaking guitars in England at that time, and they made some of the stuff for the Shadows.
Did that guitar originally have a vibrato tailpiece on it?
It has a vibrato, which is my own design, and it's better than anybody else's vibrato.
How does it work? What principle?
The strings lock onto a mild steel plate, which pivots on a knife edge, a case-hardened knife edge, and it's balanced. The tension of the strings is balanced by two motorcycle springs. So so there's very little friction in the system. And I also designed a special bridge which had rollers instead of the usual arrangement where they just come over a fixed bridge. The rollers move, and so you can take the bottom string down about an octave and bring it up, and it's pretty close to in tune. It's really performs quite well. I'm being very big-headed about it because I used to have a copy which was made by a guy in England called John Birch.
Oh, sure, I know John.
And it was pretty close, but it never quite sounded. I could never forget that it was a copy when I was playing it. Somehow didn't quite feel the same. It didn't quite sound the same.
What's unique about your guitar sound?
I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, but it just, for me, it has a warmth, but it also has an edge. And it's somewhere between sort of typical Fender sound and typical Gibson sound.
You know, and one of your most identifiable tones is that sweet, sustainy sort of sound, like in the Wedding March and Flash, and
yeah.
It appears in Keep Yourself Alive and Procession.
Right.
How is that tone created?
The stuff like the Wedding March and those orchestral things, I usually use the small amplifier as well as the AC30. I use AC30 for almost everything.
What's that? I couldn't hear you.
Sorry?
I couldn't hear you.
What is the AC30?
You said you used a small amplifier?
Yes, a little amplifier which was made by John Deacon.
And what's an AC30?
AC30 is made by Vox, an English company. And most of the ones I have are old. They were made, again, they were Shadows. They were used by the Shadows. And they have tubes instead of transistors, and a very, very identifiable sound, again, a very flexible sound. They don't have very much coloration, so you can get a wide range of sound from them. They always have that nice little high fidelity edge to them somehow. They're a Class A amplifier, if you know what I'm saying. They use the tubes biased in a Class A way instead of most guitar amplifiers are Class B, which means there's more inherent distortion even at low level. But these things are very clean at low level and then just gradually and smoothly go into a nice distortion.
So you were in your late teens when you finally got your electric guitar?
Yeah.
What was your first professional experiences? Pre-Smile.
We had a little group when I was at school, called 1984. And the first gig we ever played was St. Mary's Hall in Twickenham, which is just opposite Eel Pie Island.
Pardon me?
It's just opposite a little island in the middle of the Thames called Eel Pie Island. Yeah, St. Mary's Hall, I remember it well.
How old were you?
Something about 17.
This must have been around the psychedelic days?
Yes. What we used to play in those days was a mixture of adapted soul stuff like Sam and Dave and Otis Redding and bits of... No, actually that was just pre-psychedelia, I guess. Yes, because the Pink Floyd weren't around then. What else did we do? We used to try and do a couple of songs of our own, but mainly that sort of stuff. And latterly, as time went on, we went to Pink Floyd and Cream and Jimi Hendrix came along. We used to start doing Pink Floyd then.
Were you very impressed by Clapton or Hendrix in those days?
Yes, absolutely. Well, Clapton from the very beginning, because I used to go and see the Yardbirds, and we actually did a couple of their songs I think in the early days. And Clapton was unbelievable, just so sparkling and fluid, you know. Seeing him was what turned me away from the Shadow style and sent me back to listening to B.B. King and Bo Diddley, and all those people who I had heard, but sort of thought that I thought it was all the same. I thought it was 12-bar blues and that was it. You know, I didn't really realise the depth that there was in it, or how much emotion there was in it, until I saw Eric Clapton doing it. Then that somehow made it accessible for me. So I then went back and listened to his influences, and then listened to him very closely, and listened to other people like Mike Bloomfield. There was an album, the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, which had all those classics on it, you know, and that was another thing which I used to listen to very carefully.
Was that East-West?
No, it's the one before East-West.
Okay, the first. Was Beck much of an influence, or Page?
Yes, Jeff Beck, extremely.
Huh.
He succeeded Clapton in the Yardbirds. I couldn't believe what he could do. You know, he would. I remember seeing him put the guitar down and make it feedback and play a whole tune without even touching the keyboard. What's he doing? And that was the first time I think I saw a Les Paul guitar.
Uh-huh.
And I saw a gig at the Marquee soon after Beck had joined. And they did a whole, the Yardbirds did the set with Beck, and Eric Clapton came on and jammed at the end. And that was pretty amazing. I'll never forget that.
Did you ever see Hendrix?
Yes. Well, I thought after seeing those two that I'd seen it all, and I was playing, I'd been playing all that time, you know, and I could play in that style, and I was beginning to make the guitar sort of talk, which is what I wanted it to do. I always wanted the guitar, from when I started playing for people, I didn't want it to be an accompanying instrument. I wanted it to talk the same way a vocal did and have some feeling in it, you know. And then when I saw Hendrix, I thought, oh my God, this guy is doing everything that I was trying to do. So he just made me feel like I couldn't play.
Really?
Oh, completely. I saw him for the first time supporting The Who at the Savile Theatre in London. And up to that point, I hadn't really wanted to admit that he was good. You know, there's a funny thing. It's hard to explain, but it makes you feel very uncomfortable when you thought you knew everything that was going on, and then suddenly somebody comes along and seems to be doing all sorts of things which you hadn't even thought of, never mind find yourself able to play. And I heard him play on Hey Joe, and the flip side, there's an amazing solo on the flip side of Hey Joe, on Stone Tree.
Uh-huh.
Remember that record?
Yeah, sure.
And he's playing the guitar, and he's talking to it, and it's talking back to him. And I just thought, well, he can't really be that good. He must have done that with studio technique or something. I wouldn't really admit to myself that he could be that good. And then when I saw him at the Savile Theatre, he just completely blew me away. I thought, he's it.
Wouldn't you hate to follow him?
Oh, I mean, it was impossible. The Who couldn't follow him in those days. The Who were hot. They were really hot. You know, they were big news in England. And you could tell they found it so hard to go on. Anybody in the world would find it hard to follow Hendrix.
Well, when did was there any bands between 1984 and Smile?
No.
Now, you took time out and got a bachelor's degree in physics?
Yeah, that was all going on at the same time. See, I was pretty serious about the education bit. That was from my upbringing. You know, I was taught that you had to put your education first. And I felt very bad about it, because most of my friends had gone off and been in semi-professional groups, rather than basically amateur. I mean, 1984 was amateur group. You know, we got paid occasionally, but mostly it was for fun. And I was very jealous of all those people who were doing it at school, because all the pressures on me were to keep on with the studies and not go off and play. So it was ages. It was college. I was at university before I was able to indulge in fairly serious semi-professional playing.
Where did you get your degree from?
Imperial College London.
In London?
Yeah.
When did you finish up?
Oh dear, I'm so bad on dates. I don't know, but
About 65.
yeah, you see, I did the first degree. I got an honours degree in physics. That was what I was working towards. And I got that, and to carry on was I thought that music would be fun, but I would never get the chance to do it professionally. So I carried on, and I wanted to go into research in astronomy. I applied for a few places. I got an offer from Jodrell Bank, which was the leading radio astronomy establishment in those days. But I decided to go for Imperial College, and I actually stayed on at Imperial College in the infrared astronomy department.
And what's that?
The infrared astronomy department.
Were you teaching simultaneously?
No, I was just doing the research. Yeah, I did some part-time tutoring, but it was really just the research.
Was this around the time that Queen formed?
That was still pre-Queen, I think, because I was able to more or less finish that by the time Queen were in the studio, although I never totally finished it. I ran out of money after 3 years, because you get a grant to do that. I ran out of money, and then I taught for a year at a comprehensive school, which is like the equivalent of your grade school, I suppose. That's teaching kids from 11 to 17. And I taught there to make money to be able to continue the research, and the group was going at the same time, so I don't think I ever slept for that year.
What's the extent of your musical knowledge?
I didn't have very much formal training. The training that I had came from piano lessons when I was young. I think from the age of about, maybe 9 to 13, I was taking piano lessons.
Can you read music now?
Yeah, I can read, but pretty slowly.
So were you basically self-taught on guitar?
Yeah.
Okay, when Queen formed, or since the formation of Queen, have you more or less had a completely free hand in constructing your solos and fills and stuff?
Yes, we generally talk about it, and very often the author of the song will have an idea of what he wants. But mostly I go in there and we try things out.
Do you have a philosophy of soloing, what you think a solo should do?
Well, it's different in every case, of course, but mostly the guideline that I've worked on is that it should be, the best solos are something which you can sing as well as the melody line. And it will be, and the kind of solos I enjoy are where there's a melody line there which reflects the melody line but subtly changed in some way which adds to the song, just opens up another little window in the song. There should be some of that, and it should also have some freedom. There should be some spontaneity there. It should be totally planned out. Mostly.
How do you approach a solo?
Well, generally in the studio, when we've played the backing track a lot of times, and there's a guide vocal on there, I usually get something in my head, and when it comes to solo time, I go in there, and we do 2 or 3 takes just straight off without anything. And generally there's something there in the first, very often the first take has a lot of what goes on the record. And there may just be a couple of notes which we don't like, and we'll change them, because that's one of the advantages of the multi-track system. You can do a couple more solos alongside, and you can button little things in and out. So very often I like the feel of the first thing I do, which is spontaneous. But there'll be a couple of notes in there which I think didn't work, and so I'll change them to make the whole thing work.
Have you ever come up with a solo or a soloing concept before you had a song to use it in?
Actually, that happened with the Brighton Rock thing, yes.
Really?
Yeah, because we used to do the song, Son and Daughter we used to do on stage. And there used to be a solo section in the middle of that. And that solo section became what was in Brighton Rock.
This sort of solo showcase?
Yeah, and after Brighton Rock was recorded, the solo evolved a lot more into, one facet of it was the way it is in the live album. And it's changed a lot since then as well, and sometimes we've dropped it, because sometimes I felt I got to stay on it. I don't like to do exactly the same thing too do Brighton Rock anymore. So it's gone full circle. In the beginning the solo was there, and then the song was around it, and then the song disappeared, the solo's there.
When did you start doing the long solo on stage?
The first time we went out with What the Hoople.
That would be about 76.
Probably.
You toured America?
We toured England first, or Britain, England, Scotland, and Wales, and then America, yeah. It wasn't very long in those days. It would be, I don't know, about half a minute, I think.
It's gotten quite a bit longer now, it
Yeah,
seems.
now it's about 10. But sometimes it's not. If I'm not in the mood and I don't feel it's quite right, it'll get short again.
Do you change it around night to night?
Yeah, it's never the same. I try not to get stuck in too many ruts. And I don't think there's really anything left of the actual Brighton solo in there now. It's different things. But I'm using the same technique, which is using the repeats, playing along with them.
Now, is that how you get those different parts going at once?
Yeah.
Would you describe how you do that?
Yes, it's just a delay machine. Set on one delay rather than a multiple. So it's not a sort of echo effect. It's one line coming back at you. And I have two of them, so I have two, and I can do 3-part harmonies with that. So I can play a line, maybe 2 or 3 notes, and then it comes back, and I can play along with it, and it comes back again, and there's 3 parts.
What kind of delays are they?
It's about 1.5 seconds, I think, mostly I use. And I've used different things for different songs in the past, but we've sort of simplified what we do for a lot of the songs. I used to use echoes in lots of songs, like Keep Yourself Alive, and in the Prophet song, and all those things. But nowadays, most of the set is just straight guitar, and it's only the solo where I use the repeats. And sometimes I get fed up with them even then, because I feel like maybe it's a crutch, and it shouldn't be. So sometimes I like to switch them off and do a little bit totally straight and naked.
Like on the Live Killers album, there's a part in the solo in Brighton Rock where there's these real massive sounds. It's not with the repeat machines, but I wanted to describe them as sort of cathedral sounds, but...
No, that's just the repeats, I think, with different tone settings on the guitar. And then eventually Roger and John came back in along with it.
Do you have trouble staying in tune during the long solo?
Usually towards the end of the solo, when I'm bending things a long way, things can get out of tune. I don't usually notice it until the next number. And if it's something like Under Pressure, where it's got to be spot on, I die a million deaths.
Break a string and die.
Yeah, breaking strings is the worst, and I have done it. Sometimes it's happened at the very beginning of the solo, and it just really destroys the concentration.
What will you do then? Have the guitar feedback and grab another one or something?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Does your mood influence the way you play very much?
Oh, yeah, especially in the solos. Yeah, because that's my freedom time. Yeah, mood helps a lot, and the audience helps a lot.
Do you have to be in a certain state of consciousness to play your best?
No, I think it grows out of the concert, really. I don't think it matters how you go on. If the sound is good, if it sounds good to me, and I know that it sounds good out front, and there's a lot of feedback from the audience, then I think it grows out of that.
Do you have ways of psyching yourself up on stage?
Just the sound. I just enjoy the sound. That's the main thing.
Do you ever foresee the day when the long guitar solo will be obsolete?
Well, I've thought it was obsolete many times, and we've thrown it out yet. We haven't done it every night on this tour. But somehow it seems to creep back in there. I don't know why. It's weird. I did it for years, and nobody would talk about it. And then when I threw it out, everyone said, "Hey, you threw that out. How could you do that?" Weird.
That's funny.
On this tour, it's been we do some special things with the lights, because I don't know if you saw that show.
Yeah, I did.
We had those pods which can fly about, and I used to do a little sort of battle with those, and that gave it a new lease of life. And people would tend to notice that. They would say, as opposed to not saying anything, they would say, "I like the lights in the solo." I really liked the solo. The lighting was great.
Doesn't that hurt?
Well, it's
I know.
so, what can you say? It's a show.
All right, so would you say that audiences are as appreciative of them now as they were in the past?
What, solos?
The long, extended solo, yeah.
I don't know, really.
Do you ever
What
get
do you
in?
think?
I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I found people seem to appreciate it more in this too than they did before. I don't know why.
So I think there's an increase of heavy metal fans.
True.
And I think the guitar solos are something that really appeal to them.
Well, there is that too. I think a lot of people thought our material was veering too far away from the heavy side. And they thought that the solo stuff redressed the balance to a certain extent.
Yeah, it sort of seemed like on the album Since the Game there was less guitar than in the past.
Yeah, it's been a different sort of approach, but that's really not necessarily going to be the same forever. That was just an experiment.
Did adding synthesizers sort of take over some of your territory?
No, it complements it really. No, I find that good. We've all used them, and there are things which synthesizers can do these days which are pretty helpful.
I have another question about your long solo.
Yeah.
Do you ever get into territories during that you've never played before?
Oh yeah, I mean I get very disappointed if I don't, sometimes during the tour. Yeah, there's usually a couple of notes in there, I mean, which will be different. I never know quite what's going to happen. And then occasionally, like one night in 5, I'll discover a new effect in there. Because there's a lot of things can happen. You can play in sync with what comes back and make the harmonies, or you can play chords and then you can play the single notes on top, get a sort of playing and rhythm effect, or you can do various kinds of counterpoint things. Sometimes they work. It all depends whether I can hear myself well. If it's a good night and I can really hear well, I get into it and I can do some things which demand very close timing. And there's a thing which I discovered on this tour, which was doing stabs. I'm not even sure. I don't think I can really describe it. But they're stabs which are not exactly on the beat. So when it comes back at you, they're in a different place each time. It's very hard to describe. But I found I could do all sorts of strange things with that, just making them mesh in a different way.
I thought it was very amazing when I saw it.
Good, thank you.
The solo.
Sometimes it's terrible. Sometimes I know that I'm not getting it together, and I just do the best I can and drag out a few things which have worked in the past, But on a good night, I feel that I can do something interesting.
As far as, you on record at least, you have a lot of different tones.
Yeah.
How do you arrive at a tone? Do you get an idea in your mind and then try to find it from equipment, or does the equipment suggest it to you?
I think it's just a lucky combination of guitar and amplifiers. The guitar has a very wide range of sound naturally. I know what to do to make it scream or to make it be mellow. And the amplifier just responds in that way. I've never really known any other way. And we don't use it. There's really nothing else. There aren't any fancy effects, really.
Do you have a pedal board?
Yeah, I have on-off switches for the repeats.
Is that basically it?
And I have an old Fox phase pedal, which I don't use much anymore, but it just gives a gentle phasing. And these days I've been using a Boss phaser for a lot of the things, which gives me a stereo output, which I like. Gives it a little bit more space.
Well, what's your philosophy of using effects, Brian?
I think the only effects I like are the effects you can play. I don't really like icing on the cake effects, if you know what I mean. But if you can really play it, if it adds some sort of voice. The only other thing I have is a thing which I had made especially to work the harmonizer, and it's a device which changes the pitch change of the harmonizer, and it's worked by a pedal. So I use that for making silly noises, basically. I mean, in Get Down, Make Love. But even that became something I could play because you get a feel for the pedal, and if I can get different musical intervals, and they're all exact. They're not just random. They're, I can get a minor third below, I think it is, and a semitone below, and then I can get unison, and then I get a tone above, and a minor and a major third above, and an octave above. So you can do all kinds of things that you can just gently feel out what's happening at a particular time. And there's a delay built into that as well, so it does this kind of business.
Was this made by someone for you?
Yeah, it's made by Pete Cornish, an English guy.
Oh, sure.
And I think he's making them to sell now. It's an interesting gadget.
What are your views on the vibrato bar? Do you view that as an effect?
Mainly, yes. Mainly for making motorbike noises. Yeah. Although at times it's useful for a very mellow vibrato, because the vibrato most often comes from the fingers, I think, most people. But, the left hand. But occasionally, if you want something to really smoothly ride over, or to just to make a chord blend in better with what's going on around, that tremolo bar can be very nice for a gentle effect.
Do you have trouble staying in tune when you use it?
No, it's generally pretty good. The only big problem comes in breaking a string. If you break a string, the whole thing goes out, a tone or more. So it's hopeless. I mean, you just have to put it down. There's no way you can keep it in tune.
There's been some really interesting effects done with vibrato lately, like Holdsworth, Van Halen, and those guys.
Oh, Eddie Van Halen, superb. And Holdsworth is very good too. Both those guys.
Well, Van Halen told me that you're one of his favorites of all time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very pleased that he says so. He does all kinds of stuff which I can't begin to figure out what's going on. I like him a lot. He's really, I find it exciting listening to him.
Yeah, he's really one of the first Americans to grab the attention of guitar players in a very long time.
Oh, yeah. He's great. He's just so completely fluid. He makes everyone else look like they're standing still. I would not fancy following him.
Yeah. Do you play is there a difference between Brian-made guitar music when you're by yourself and what you play when you're with the band?
That's a delicate question. Yes, I guess there is. I haven't found it that easy to custom myself to the new stuff, or a lot of the stuff which Freddie and John particularly want to do, the more R&B oriented stuff. It's hard for me to play like that because my playing is a reaction to that sort of playing, in a sense. When I used to listen to people clucking away on Motown records and stuff. I really didn't like it. I always thought to myself, that's the kind of thing I don't want to play. I want the guitar to be up there speaking. And so to sort of, in a way, return to that was difficult for me. And it's a discipline which I've gradually worked into, but I find myself wanting to burst out of it all the time, make a lot of noise.
Do you play in styles that aren't represented on any of the albums?
No, most of it's there in some way.
Do you spend much time with the instrument outside of the band, practicing by yourself or composing?
Not a lot these days. In the last couple of years, I've spent very little time on it, except the sound checks and playing nights, which is a shame, but it's just the way it's worked out. Life's been very hectic.
Do you ever get into slumps with your playing?
What do you mean? I can't play at all?
No, where you pick it up and you'll play stuff and it'll sound like what you played before and you just go, I wish you want to take it a step further.
Yeah, it mainly occurs when I don't like the sound. For me, the sound is vitally important. You know, I think there's really no beauty in guitar playing unless the sound is beautiful to begin with. And so if the thing is sounding scratchy or distorted or just not right, you know, I feel that I can't play. You know, I instantly feel that way. Or if I pick up a guitar which I can't, and you know, my guitar's a very personal thing. Sometimes people have said, why don't you play something, you know, sit in with us and play my guitar. And sometimes I've said yes and done it, and then I haven't been able to play anything really, because I just couldn't make it sing. If the guitar doesn't sustain, I can't play.
On the other hand, if you're in a situation where the acoustics are just right and the guitar sounds great, will that inspire you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I feel like I can play anything on those nights, yeah.
Can you play most of the stuff you can hear in your head?
Yes, I think so. That I think is central to being an interesting player, you know, to feeling good about your playing. You have to be able to get it straight from your head to the guitar. So within reason, I think I can. You never quite know if you're fooling yourself, because you never know if your head's guiding your fingers or your fingers are slightly guiding your head. You know?
Will you sacrifice technique to get emotion?
Yes, it's a simple answer.
Okay.
Yes, I'd say so.
How do you... I'm sorry.
Definitely, I think the times when I'm playing best are the times when I'm slowing down and not trying to, not trying to show off. You know, the nights when I feel I'm playing something worthwhile, it's never fingers all over the place. It's just a few things which are exactly right. A few things which creep up to the note in exactly the right way, or, you know, just, like you say, emotion.
What's the difference between your live and your studio playing? Is either easier for you?
I enjoy the live stuff a lot more. There are moments in the studio which I enjoy, but most of the studio is sheer misery. Yeah, because it's in the writing and the arranging of material. It's such a painstaking process these days for us. You know, the time I can get in and play any time and do solos and stuff, but that's not the majority of the work that's done. The majority of it is real soul searching and wondering whether a song is right or not.
Uh-huh.
Which is painful.
How do you personally compose?
I generally get ideas on the road or away from the studio, and then when it comes to making the album, I get the ideas out, which may be on cassette or might be on paper, and I just work on them.
How do you present the tunes to the band?
We just strum a guitar, we'll play the piano and sing. We get gathered around.
So you arrange it in sort of a jam environment?
Yes, in a kind of discussion environment.
Pardon me?
In a discussion environment.
How has your approach to recording guitar changed over the years?
Not very much, really. I don't think. I generally have a sound in my head which I know I'm trying to get, and I find I can get it most places. It doesn't really matter what studio it is or what microphone it is. I think you can always, you know, if you put the microphone in the right place, you're 90% of the way there.
You what's that?
I think if you put the microphone in exactly the right place relative to the amplifier, you're 90% of the way there. So, you know, and then I just get in there and play.
Have you basically used the same studio setup and equipment?
Yes, I always use the AC30, except for those instances which you were talking about, where there's a particular orchestra sound, and I've used a small amplifier.
Do you have trouble in the studio psyching yourself up, having to wait a long time to get the sound right and then play?
Well, I think that's something which I've learned over the years. I don't find it so hard anymore. I think a lot of of it is getting a good fallback sound. You know, it's hard to get that technique of playing with headphones in the studio. It's not a live situation. And the balance and the sound help a lot. If you get a good stereo balance in the cans, which you're happy with, I find these days I can forget where I am and I just immediately get into it. I was talking to Eddie about that actually, because he's found that he can never really overdub things in the studio at all because he hates working with the cans. And you know, I think maybe it's because no one's ever really got it right for him. That's my feeling anyway.
That could well be.
I think if you get it so you can feel it like it is on stage, there's no problem. It just feels like you've got the band behind you.
When you record acoustic guitar,
yeah.
How do you mic it usually?
Generally one in the front, about a few inches away from the sound hole, and very often one little further away, either in the front or behind.
Have you used the same acoustics on your records, or have they changed?
No, I've used a number of different ones. I have a very old, very cheap one, which makes that buzzy sound. It's on Jealousy and on White Queen.
Do you know? Oh, is it sort of sitar-like on White Queen?
Yes, it sounds like a sitar. I made it do that by taking off the bridge and putting a hardwood bridge on. And I chiseled away at it until it was flat, and stuck little pieces of fret wire material underneath. So the strings just very gently lay on the fret wire, and it makes that sort of sitar type sound.
That's not, what make a guitar was that?
Oh.
Like a Burns or something?
Hail Fred.
What's the name of it?
I think it was called Hail Fred. I still have it.
Hail Fred?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know how that's spelled?
Hailfred.
That's what I was afraid of.
I've never seen anything else. I've never seen another one. It's really a cheap guitar.
Are you a guitar collector? Do you have many guitars?
No, I've got about half a dozen, that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have a Strat?
Yes.
Was that used on Crazy Little Thing Called Love?
No, that was the telly.
Oh, boy, we were trying to figure out what that was here.
No, that was, in fact, Roger's Telecaster. Roger collects guitars.
Uh-huh.
And it was one of his old ones. I think it was a really old, beat-up, natural wood Telecaster.
It sounded kind of Stratty.
Well, that's what it was.
Yeah. So you don't buy guitars very often?
No, not really. I got kind of bludgeoned into playing that. That was Mac's idea. And I said, I don't want to play Telecaster. Because I basically, it doesn't suit my style. But then the Crazy Little Thing had, you're talking about Crazy Little Thing, right?
Right.
Crazy Little Thing was such a period piece in a way that it seemed to need that sort of period sound. And so I said, okay, Mac, if you want to set it up, I'll play it. He set it up and he put it through, I think it was a Boogie, which is another amplifier which I don't get on with at all, it just doesn't suit me. But anyway, he set it up and he said, right, try this. And I tried it and it sounded okay, so we kept it.
Besides your, the guitar you made with your father,
yeah.
What other electrics have you got?
I have one Strat and one Telecaster, and a Flying V, which is a recent acquisition. I got it because I smashed up my copy.
Oh, yeah.
I remember I told you I had a copy. Well, I got very frustrated with it one night and very uncharacteristically threw it off stage, and it happened to be a very high stage, and it smashed it to lots of pieces. Now I don't have a spare. But luckily, the chief designer at Fender came to one of the shows, and he said, would I like him to build me a copy? So he's going to do it.
Freddie?
I was really delighted. So he's going to build me an exact copy of what I have.
Is that Freddie Tavares?
He's called John, I can't remember.
I know who it is. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Will you find out?
Yeah, I will.
What's his name? John, I know it's John, but I can't remember. No, John. I don't remember.
I
do it for me. So I'm hoping to have that by Christmas time. I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm surprised no one's done a Brian May guitar, a copy of yours.
Well, the Japanese company did. The firm called Greco made a Brian May guitar, which was an exact copy, and they called it a BHM 900 or something. And they sent me an example, and I said, thanks very much for sending it to me. It looks nice, but it doesn't actually sound that nice. Why don't we get together and make it sound good too? And then you can, put my name on it properly. But they never replied, so I guess they weren't interested.
Oh, too bad.
But I don't know, I would like, we very tentatively talked about it. It'd be nice if Fender at some stage do one. That would be an ideal thing for me, have a real class company like Fender do it.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody has to write to Fender and say they want a Brian May guitar, and maybe they'll do it.
Maybe they will after the article. Van Halen told me that guitar has a small, almost a three-quarter size body.
Yes, it's pretty small.
It's
a 24-inch scale, slightly shorter.
Normal fretboard?
Yeah, 24 instead of 24 and 3/4.
But the body itself is smaller?
It's quite small, yeah.
Do you play with a pick? From where I saw you play, you were about an inch tall, so I couldn't really make out what you were doing.
I play with an English sixpence, that is a coin.
Is that right?
Yeah, with a serrated edge. It's made of soft metal, but it has a serration on the edge, which gives a nice clucking, a nice edge if you want.
What kind of strings do you use?
Rotosound.
Rotosound. Are those a certain kind of round wound or?
Round wound, yeah.
How do you gauge them?
I think it's 8, 9, 11, 16, 22, 34.
Very light. How do you hold the pick?
Just loosely between the thumb and the first finger with the first finger bent down.
Do you follow any picking patterns? Like downstrokes or circle picking? Or?
I never really think about it. No, I just sort of fairly gently progress from one to the other. And all the movement is felt. That's why I like the rigid pick. Because none of the movement, none of the feeling of the string is lost. It all gets to your fingers. So I hold it pretty loosely and everything gets very controlled.
How do you play harmonics?
Just by playing and touching the string with the back of the hand, the heel of the hand. Can you excuse me 1 second?
Sure, Brian.
Sorry about that.
Are we running out of time?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you should ask Eddie about that. He's the expert.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I have a few questions about specific cuts on albums.
Yeah.
Can we shoot through them?
Yeah.
On the very first version of Keep Yourself Alive,
yeah.
How did you process the rhythm strums? What was that going through?
That was real tape phasing. Yeah, it was in the days when you took it off the sync head and put it through a couple of other tape delays and then brought it back with the playhead.
How did you process the sound in the solo of Killer Queen on Sheer Heart Attack?
There's no processing whatsoever on that, as far as I remember.
Wow.
That's just the way it was. There's two kind of amplifiers. I used let me see. Yes, I used a small amplifier to do those little chorus things behind, the three-part things. And I used just the normal AC30 and the fingerboard pickup on the guitar.
Do you use an AC30 on stage?
Yeah.
Wasn't there a swirling sound at the end of that track, something like Hendrix, sort of?
Yeah, I think there was a bit more tape phasing on the end of that, yeah.
You used a ukulele banjo and Bring Back Leroy Brown?
Yeah.
Was that in the uke tuning?
Yes, the genuine George Formby article, yeah.
Do you use open tunings very much?
No. The only other tuning I've used apart from normal is to take the bottom string down to D, which I've used on the Prophet song and White Man, Fat Bottom Girls.
Well, the solo in Sweet Lady, was that a first take or an early take?
God, I can't remember what that's like.
Night at the Opera.
Yeah, I think that was pretty well first take. But there's nothing very special about that. I just don't think.
Did you arrange Prophet's song?
Yeah.
And you played a toy koto?
Yes, that was a present from a Japanese fan. The normal koto is about 8 feet long, huge. But this thing was only about a foot and a half long.
Ah. There's sort of there's a psychedelic solo in there, if I remember correctly. Sort of psychedelic with a long, sweeping sound. It sort of sounded like a backwards note where you play the tape in reverse.
Yes, but that was just getting a lot of sustain, I think. I don't think there's any backward stuff on there. There's backward stuff on some other tracks. On Cars, I'm trying to think. On Flick of the Wrist, there's some backward guitar. I don't think on the Prophet song, no, that's all standard.
Did you learn harp for love of my life?
Yeah, well, kind of. Learning would be too strong a word. I did it chord by chord. Actually it took longer to tune the thing than to play. It was a nightmare. Every time someone opened the door, the temperature would change and the whole thing would go out. I would hate to have to play a harp on stage. But I just figured out how it worked, the pedals and everything, and did it bit by bit.
The song Good Company.
Yes.
Or is that the one with, it's got sort of horn-like jazz
That's
licks?
right, yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah, that's 3-4 different kinds of guitars, yeah.
Well done.
Oh, thank you.
Sounded like horns.
I was very keen in those days on getting everything, on recreating that sort of atmosphere.
How did you get the sound?
Well, again, with small amplifiers, mainly. I used John's Deaky's little transistor amplifier and a volume pedal. And for the trombone and the trumpet sounds, I would do every note individually, do it and then drop in. I mean, incredibly painstaking. It took ages and ages. And I listened to a lot of traditional jazz music when I was young. And so I tried to get the phrasing as it would be if it were played by that instrument.
Whose idea, what's the origin of the harmonized vocals like in Bohemian Rhapsody?
Oh, the harmonies and stuff?
Yeah.
We always were keen on that kind of thing. That was one of the things which we wanted to do from the beginning. We wanted to be a group which could produce the heaviness of a sort of hard rock, but also have harmonies swooping around all over the place, because we thought there was some real power and emotion in that combination.
Was the first solo in that song difficult for you?
In
Bohemian Rhapsody.
No, that was pretty much off the cuff as well, I think.
Really?
I'm trying to think. Except I think I had plenty of time to think about that. I think I remember playing along with it in the studio for a while when other things were being done. I knew what kind of melody I wanted to play for that.
Was it your idea to include God Save the Queen?
Sorry?
Was it your idea to include the song God Save the Queen?
I think it was, yes.
How was the signal created in there, or the tone?
How was the tone?
Yeah.
Like, just small amplifiers.
When you say small amp, what kind of amp are we talking about?
Okay, it's what used to be called a hi-fi in England, which is a speaker about, a speaker cabinet about a foot by 6 inches, I think. And John put a little transistor amplifier inside it. And I used it with a treble booster which overloaded it. I still do. It just makes a good noise. I don't know why.
Is it basically a homemade amplifier?
Oh, yeah.
Can you get that sort of sweet, sustainy sound out of other equipment, or do you have to have your guitar in that amp?
No, I've used different amps. I've used all kinds of little practice amps.
Do you crank them up or keep them low?
Yeah, just drive them nuts. Yeah, the Vox made a little sort of baby AC30 at one time. I've used those on occasion. They're quite good. They're about the same size, about a foot tall.
On day at the races, did you use the slide and tie your mother down?
Yeah.
A metal one?
Glass one, I think.
Was that in standard tuning?
Yeah.
Near the end of the intro of that album, and at the very end, there's a climb with several parts going.
Yeah.
Was that all guitar?
You've been really listening, haven't you?
Yeah, I always do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Good. Yeah, that's all guitar. It's a sort of... I'll tell you exactly what that is. It was supposed to be the musical equivalent of that ridiculous staircase optical illusion. You know the one where there's a staircase going around four sides of a square, and it seems to always be going upwards.
Oh, like Max Escher?
That's right. I think it's an Escher painting.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the equivalent of that because every part on that is going up. But what happens is each part fades into an octave below. Gradually as it goes up. So by the time it gets to the top, it sounds almost like it's an octave below.
Very good effect.
Thank you. You're probably the only person in the world who's ever noticed it.
Oh, I got another question on that album. How did you dial in?
It's also backwards.
Pardon me?
It's also backwards.
That is?
Yeah, because I played it all descending.
I'm going to have to listen to it again now. How did you dial in the violin-like tone in You Take My Breath Away?
Take my breath away. There's a particular pickup combination which I use for violin things, which is the fingerboard pickup and the middle one. And those two working in phase make a very mellow sound. And there's a point with the amplifier where it's just about to get distorted but not quite. And instead of using a pick, I just tap the fingerboard with the right hand. And that just sets the thing moving, and it sustains itself. You hardly need to even tap in it. If you stand in exactly the right position, it feeds back in any position.
Mm-hmm.
You can just wobble around, and it's very smooth.
The instrumental opening of Long Away sounded something like an electrified dobro.
That is... that's a 12-string Burns, which I still have. It's one of the few guitars I still have.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a Burns 12-string, which is green. Sunburst green.
Sunburst?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's awful.
Yes.
Millionaire Waltz.
Yeah.
Had to have taken a long time to do.
Oh, yes. Baroque.
How many tracks?
Oh, I think you heard everything right. I think that holds the record. There's one bit in there which is a sort of like a fairground effect behind. And I think I did... God, I'm trying to think. I think there's sort of 3 octaves for each part. And it's sort of a 6th part. I'm not quite sure. It could be about 18 or 20.
Amazing.
It's a funny sound. It makes a peculiarly sort of rigid sound. I was really surprised. It sounded like a fairground organ, I thought.
In the News of the World, We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions.
Yeah.
How did you have the settings on your guitar to get that sound?
Will Rock You?
Yeah.
That is my number one normal sound, really. That's the sound I use for a lot of things, which is the bridge pickup and the middle pickup in phase with each other, in series. They're wide in series.
In the tune All Dead, is the instrumental break on layered guitars?
Yes. Yeah. I think, yeah, maybe I should have said that when you asked. That's one of my favourites. That was one of the ones which I thought came off best. I was really pleased with the sound of that.
I'll move that up in the essential ones then.
Yeah, I enjoy that. It would give me a surprise when I listened to it, because it was meant to really bring tears to your eyes, and it almost does it to me.
Yeah, it was really good. In the break and Get Down, you have some strange effects. It sounds like you're hitting the strings above the note or something.
Get Down?
Yeah.
In the solo?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a harmonizer thing there.
Oh, I see.
That was when I started using the harmonizer for that. But I didn't have the pedal in that when we were in the studio doing the album. I made the pedal afterwards to duplicate it.
You mentioned tapping on the fingerboard.
Yeah.
Did you do that in It's Late?
Yes, that was actually hammering on the fingerboard, yeah.
Or with your left hand?
With the right hand. In fact, with both hands. Yeah, there was a... I pinched that from... what's his name in ZZ Top, really?
Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
He, by the way, plays with a 25-cent piece.
Oh, really?
He uses a quarter.
I heard... it's better than that. I stole it from a guy who said that he stole it from Billy Gibbons. He was playing in some club in Texas doing hammering stuff. It wasn't exactly what is on It's Late, but he was doing that kind of thing, and I was so intrigued by it. I went home and played around with it for ages and put it on It's Late. It was a sort of double hammer that I was playing with fretting with the left hand, and then hammering with another finger on the left hand, and then hammering with the right hand as well.
That's good.
Yeah, it was a problem to do on stage. I found that it was a bit too stiff to do on stage. It's okay if you're sitting down with the guitar. If I persevered with it, it would probably become second nature. But it wasn't an alleyway which led very far to my way of thinking. It was a bit sort of gimmicky.
Is Fat Bottom Girls in standard tuning?
No, that's with the bottom E tuned down to D.
Did you use it?
To D.
To D as in dog?
Yeah.
Did you use the slide in that tune at all?
In Fat Bottom Girls?
Yeah.
No.
There's a part where I wasn't really sure.
Yes, actually, it does sound a bit like a slide. No, it's just three-part harmony things which happen to be doing similar things.
In Jealousy, there's a sitar-like instrumental opening. Is that the old guitar with the fret on the bridge?
Jealousy.
On Jazz?
I think that's the buzzy acoustic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
That's it, yeah.
Was it hard to build up to the speed for the solo in Dead on Time? If I recall, you really crank in that tune.
No, it wasn't really. I don't think so. That was something I was quite pleased with, but really nobody else was. I don't think
Really?
it's something which nobody ever really mentions very much.
Huh.
The Fat Bottom Girls I thought was okay, but fairly banal. I thought people would be much more interested in Dead on Time, but it didn't really get that much airplay.
Were the explosions at the end a Jet or you?
That's a real thunderstorm which occurred when we were up there in Bear Les Alpes in the south of France. We put a tape recorder out.
We were talking about the violin tone you have.
Yeah.
Was that what you used for the beginning of Leaving Home Ain't Easy?
Yes. I'm trying to think. Yes. Now for that, I actually used the studio faders to fade them in. Yeah, but it was that same sort of sound.
Is Live Killers what a late 70s Queen concert was like? Is that fairly representative?
Yeah, pretty close. I think we play better now. I don't think it's... In retrospect, I don't think it's a very good sounding album. I don't know why.
Huh.
There's some things I like, but on the whole, I think it sounds a bit... I don't think it really truly represents the depth that there was there.
Well, that version of Get Down, Make Love, it sounds like on the game, there seemed to be a little bit less guitars, but your playing seemed freer and more experimental.
Yeah, that was when we started actually trying to get outside what was normal for us, most of all, I think, yeah. Plus we had a new engineer in Mac, and we had a new environment in Munich, and everything was different. We tried a lot of stuff different, and I think we turned our whole studio technique around in a sense, because Mac had come from a different background from us, and we thought there was only one way of doing things, something like doing a backing track. We would just do it until we got it right, and if there was some bits where it speeded up or slowed down, then we would do it again until it was right. And some of our old backing tracks we'd done so many times, I think they were too stiff. Whereas Mac's first contribution was, he said, well, you don't have to do that. I can drop the whole thing in, you know. If it breaks down after half a minute, then we can drop in and we can carry on, you know, if you just play along in the tempo. And we laughed. We said, don't be silly, you can't do that. You know, but in fact, you can. And what you gain is the freshness, because very often a lot of the backing track is first time through. And it really helped a lot.
Was the Flash project time-consuming for you?
Yes, and unfortunately we didn't have enough time, because we were doing the game at the same time. But we just, we worked on, we put as much as we could in. Unfortunately we were doing the game and we were doing an American tour. Flash was going on, so it was ridiculous. But we would do a week here and a week there, and then I spent some time with the arranger, the orchestra, to try and get some coherence into it all. But, you know, it was a good experience, but next time I hope we have time to really pull the whole thing together as a unit.
Did you use the guitar for any of the album's weird effects?
The
Flash. Pardon me?
Yeah, on the Flash album?
Yeah.
Yeah, some guitar and some synthesizers.
Did that project present any unusual challenges?
Yeah, the main challenge was working for a boss who wasn't yourself. We had the director in there the whole time, and the only criterion of whether something was good was whether it helped the movie.
Did you play any of the prominent keyboard synthesizer parts?
In Flash?
Yeah.
Some, yeah. I think Freddie played most of it.
Would the royalties on an album like that be different from a normal Queen album?
Yeah, we have to share them with Mr. De Laurentiis.
Did you, on Hot Space, did you use a slide on Dancer?
No, that's guitars in harmony again. Sort of parallel harmonies. Those aren't my favourite harmonies, really. I much prefer guitar harmonies which aren't parallel. There's very few people who have done them, really. And I think, you know, it's when they're crossing over and diverging and converging, that's when the real interest comes from guitar harmonies. It just, somehow on Dancer, it seems to be the right thing to do those parallels.
How did you do this sort of surfy effect on Backchat?
Surfy? What is that?
Let me think. Is it like surf guitar?
No, what?
That's the only note I have, so I might have to just scratch that question.
Well, it would be John played the rhythm guitar on Backchat.
Oh, he did? Okay, it sounded different from you, sort of.
Yeah, that's probably John playing. John played a lot of rhythm stuff.
Was the solo and Put Out the Fire difficult for you?
Actually it was. I didn't really... Yes, and I don't really know why. Why do you ask?
It sounded like you were real psyched up for it. It's a good solo.
Yeah,
but I don't know why, just listening to it, I thought that it would be difficult to just execute it, you know. It's not the sort of thing one can sit down and whip off.
Yeah, that wasn't the first time thing. I think I'd done a lot of solos for that, and I hated every one of them. And then we came back from a club, which we usually go to have some drinks, and I think I was well on the way, and, you know, we were all slightly inebriated.
I can understand that.
And we had some ridiculous echo effect, which Mac was putting back through the cans. And I said, that sounds unbelievable. okay, try put out the fire. So we put out the fire on the machine, and I just played through it, and that was what we used, I think.
How funny.
Inspiring. It was like this huge echo sound coming from all over the place, stereo echo effect, and I could hardly hear what I was doing, but it was sounding so good, and I was so drunk.
What fun.
Yeah, I still, to be honest, I don't think it's that good a solo. I don't think it's really, it's got a sort of plodding thing going behind it. I never felt totally happy with it.
How did you get the real thick guitar sound in the rhythm track of Calling All Girls? Was that doubled?
That's acoustic, a combination of acoustic and electric.
Ah. And then you had some feedback tracks at the end there? End of the break?
Yes, Roger did that, I think.
Oh.
Yes.
Was Las
You
Palabras...
never know where things come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roger plays a lot of guitar. He's, I think he feels, he's always bursting to play guitar. He played it on his solo album.
Last question about an album.
Yeah.
Did you compose Las Palabras on a keyboard?
Yes.
Have you been on projects outside of Queen?
Not very much, no.
Were you on Breaker Morant or Road Warriors?
No, that's a different person.
That's a different Brian May.
Yes, I spend my life telling people it's not me. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, because he's got the same name as me. I wonder if he has the same problem as me.
Probably.
He's an Australian conductor, I understand. Orchestra.
Are you on any albums besides Queen? There was one in 76.
Yes, I played on Lonnie Donegan's sort of comeback album.
The one with Ringo Starr and
Yeah,
those guys?
Elton John.
Yeah, right.
What else? I haven't done very much stuff for other people. There was that Larry Lyrics single, which was Robin Cable, Trident Studios thing, and Freddie sang vocal under the assumed name of Larry Lyrics, and I played a guitar solo on that. Oh, and yes, I know what it was. Freddie produced a single for some guy called, I've totally forgotten his name. Eddie, I can't remember. But that was a particularly good one. That was one of those Killer Queen type multi-track things, which I was quite proud of.
Are you happy with the way your career is going and your art?
To be honest, no. I didn't feel that this tour was making me very happy. And that's the first time I've often felt that in the studio. That's the first time I felt it on tour. I didn't feel happy until the last concert. The last night in LA, I felt like quite cheered up. I was prepared to think, well, I really don't want to do this anymore. And then somehow when it got to the last one, Freddie was really on form and really giving 1,000,000%, and I felt that I was going well. And so the end of the tour finished on a good note for me, and I felt like I did want to be out there doing it again sometime. But we're going to have a long rest after this tour, after Japan.
After Japan?
Yeah, which comes up soon.
Do you get tired of rock and roll?
No, definitely not.
Do you have any advice you'd give to young rock guitarists?
Yeah, I would say just believe in yourself. Belief is the main thing, because nobody believes in you in the beginning. If you know that you have something to say, just keep on believing it, and push and push and push until everyone else believes too.
Anything you'd like to accomplish in the future?
I'd just like to make better music. I'd like to make. Sometime I think I would like Queen to make to go back to a really hard rock album. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that's one of the things I'd like to do.
Have you ever thought of doing a solo album, Brian?
Yes, that's another thing which I'd like to make a good solo album. Yeah, but at the moment there isn't the time. Maybe there will be next year.
all said and done, what would you like to be remembered as? We're going to bury you next.
I think, if I'm honest, I think I would like to be remembered for a few of the songs, really. None of which were really hits, but I think some of the songs which had a lot of emotion in them I'd like to be remembered.
Any come to mind?
I think White Queen and Let Us Cling Together. What's the Day at the Races out? A couple of others, maybe. A Long Away. We Will Rock You.
I have one last question I forgot before. When you play vibrato with your left hand,
Yeah.
what's your method of doing it?
I just rock the string gently backwards and forwards, always in contact with the fingerboard.
When you bend a string, do you use 1, 2, or 3 fingers?
I don't know.
You know, some people, when they say use your ring finger and put your index and middle behind it to have more control.
Yes, I think I do that. But not always. It depends where you're bending and what you're bending to. Yeah, I think very often I have 3 fingers behind it.
Do you play with all 4 fingers of your left hand?
Yes, but the little finger is weak, which is one of my big weaknesses in playing. I've learned, the new stuff that I play uses the little finger because I've consciously tried to bring it in. But when I'm playing from the head to the fingers, generally the little finger gets left out, which is a weakness, I think.
Is there anything you'd care to add? Questions that you always wish somebody to ask you, but no one ever did?
No, you asked them all.
Oh, great. Well, thanks. This has been a really fine interview.
Thank you. I'm amazed with the stuff you came up with. There's all sorts of things which I'd totally forgotten about, and no one's asked in 10 years.
Great.
Thank you. I appreciate you spending all the time. You must have really got into it to an amazing degree.
Well, my pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
I hope we'll see you one day. I hope you come to the show and we can...
Okay. Sounds fun.
All the best, Chaz.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This concludes my first interview with Brian May. Portions of this appeared as the January 1983 cover story of Guitar Player magazine. About a year later, Brian rang me up and asked if I'd be interested in doing another interview with him about an album he had just recorded with Eddie Van Halen called Starfleet Project. Let me know in the comments below if you're interested in us posting this interview as well. Before signing off, I want to express my thanks to the Southern Folklife Collection, the Andrew Mellon Foundation, and my podcast producer and engineer, Nick Hunt. I'd also like to encourage everyone to make a donation to help support the Talking Guitar Project so we can keep making podcasts like this one. We couldn't do them without you. This is copyright 2024 by me, Giles Obrecht, all rights reserved. Thank you for listening.